Hi, I'm Ken Sterling, and this is Sports Media 101. If you work in sports media, whether it's radio, whether it's podcasting at a professional level, whether it's TV, whether it's print, whatever, you've got a manager. A lot of people in sports media don't much care for their managers, but that responsibility, in a lot of cases, is borne by you because you have to manage your manager. There are a bunch of different personalities that your manager needs to deal with in trying to get the best performance, the best tactical presentation that's possible from you and from the entire staff. Everybody needs to be managed differently, and you can help your manager manage you by affirming and reaffirming what works with you. So you need to know what works with you. You, for instance, you know when a manager should have access to you. You know when you want to meet, right? And some managers want to meet every day. I interviewed with Kevin Matheny one time at WGN in Chicago, and the late Kevin Matheny, he worked at a lot of places, and what he would do is meet with talent. Met with John Williams at WGN, he told me, for an hour every morning prior to John Williams' show on WGN. Wow. Like, how exhausting would that be for John Williams, right? Really exhausting. So, did he get a great performance, a better performance out of John Williams by meeting with him an hour before the show? Probably not, but John Williams is an absolute professional talk host, and he probably did a wonderful job. But you need to know, the manager needs to know, when the best time to talk to you is, to get you to be at the height of your energy and technical proficiency during your show. So you need to tell the manager that. You need to communicate that. There are different ways to talk to different hosts in order to get a great result. And what a manager should do is want the performance level to be as energetic as possible, right? While also getting a tactical presentation that allows listeners to kind of recycle through the station. So we're talking tactical means like teases, re-identifying the show, re-identifying guests, promoting ahead to other programming during that day, all those things to bring the show a sense of stationality. This is what a lot of managers covet in a talent. They want to get that out of the talent. One way to build trust, look, your manager wants nothing more than to build a relationship with you based upon trust. That's what a manager wants, because it's way easier to manage somebody who trusts him or her than it is to manage somebody who doubts him or her, right? You don't want to manage people who are not optimistic that the information and insight you're going to provide is going to help them succeed at a higher level. So you need to build that relationship as a manager. There is no better way for the talent to facilitate that than communicate it. And that doesn't mean saying, look, my show starts at noon, so I want to be managed at 10:30. And here's what I want you to say. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when a manager, here's what good managers do. They will praise you for doing what's right. They will try to reaffirm what you do correctly so that you'll repeat that. That's the way they think. What you should do is exactly that, but in reverse. Reaffirm what the manager is doing well for you. Hey, I loved it. I loved the feedback you gave me about teases. That's wonderful. And you know what? Like for 2 hours before the show, I am so deep in thought in preparation for the show. You know what? Anytime outside that window, I love talking about this stuff with you. You say that, all they're going to hear is, you know what? This guy loves me. He loves the reinforcement I am providing. He loves the management I am offering. And he believes what I'm telling him is going to help him do a better job. What a great thing. But what you're actually saying is, hey, dumbass, talk to me before 10:30. You want something to stick in my head, or before 10. You want something to stick in my head. Talk to me when I'm not so deep in thought in preparing for the show. Because if you talk to me then, either I'm not going to hear you or I am going to hear you, and I'm not going to prepare adequately for the show. You don't say anything, don't start a conversation with a manager with, hey, dumbass. That's a good trick. Reaffirm their positive behavior just as they reaffirm yours. That's really good advice. It's not trickery, it's psychology. It's that easy. Best managers that I've worked with and worked for built a symbiotic relationship with the talent. As a talent, the best managers I've worked with did exactly the same thing, and I could help them along the way. There is nothing a manager wants more than the right answers as to how to get to and help lead a talent toward really, really good performance. If the manager is doing something that erodes your energy, there is nothing more important than energy. If you've got great energy and poor tactics, you got a chance to succeed. If you've got poor energy and great tactics, no chance. Nothing but formatics, that's nothing but failure. NBF, nothing but failure, nothing but formatics. You got to have great energy. And you've got to bring that into your show every single minute you are on the air. And anything that erodes that, you have a responsibility to your company and your listeners, not in that order, to correct. And you can do that very easily, very simply, by effectively communicating it with your manager. And effectively communicate means you never say, hey, dumbass. It's that quick, that easy. Don't punish a manager for doing it wrong. Help your manager do it right. Mike Pence was wonderful. Managing Mike Pence's show required very little effort because he would do everything that he was told from the minute, and this is the former vice president of the United States we're talking about, that Mike Pence. He was a talk host at MS Communications for Network Indiana, statewide syndicated show. And when I would meet with Mike Pence and Todd Meyer, his producer, and you say, Mike, here's a way to, drag people through commercial content from one segment to the next. Tease effectively and then pay off the tease. And I told him exactly how to do that. And from that point forward, that's exactly what he did. He did that exactly as he was told every single time from that point forward. Every time I listened, he did exactly what I told him. And it sounded great. And it made me feel smart. Nothing managers enjoy more than feeling smart. And you can make a manager feel smart, or you can make a manager feel like a dumbass. And if a manager is made to feel like a dumbass by a talent, guess what's going to happen? That talent better be really good at what he does or she does, or they're going to be out of there. Because the first responsibility of anybody in any position is to maintain that position. You got kids at home, you got a spouse at home, you're putting food on the table, you're putting money in the bank, you're putting a roof over people's heads. And if a talent is putting you in a position where you can't do that effectively, there's going to come a time in a budget meeting where somebody says, look, we got to cut $180,000. How do we do it? Well, I'll tell you what, here's how I do it. And you're going to land, if you're a manager, not necessarily a good manager, but it's a manager, and they're all human. They're going to land on the person who's the biggest threat to them. And that's what's going to happen. So don't make that their choice. And it's easy enough not to. All you got to do is make them feel smart. You make a manager feel smart for managing you well, you're going to lead that manager toward that level of management. That is being a really, really smart direct report to a manager. And it's going to prolong your career, and it's going to make for a more harmonious relationship. And that kind of harmony can yield two things. Number one, a really, really happy workplace. And number two, a really, really productive workplace where you wind up doing good work. You wind up doing your best work for a manager who understands you, and it's your responsibility to bring a higher level of understanding to your manager. And if you're a manager, don't punish your talent. Don't do that. Make it easy for your talent. Don't make it difficult for your talent. Kevin Matheny, the late great Kevin Matheny, made it more difficult for talent at WGN and other places where he worked to do great radio. He was tactically right 100% of the time. But what he did in the style of his management was suck the energy out of the room. And you saw it in Private Parts. And Kevin Matheny, a good guy and a smart radio guy. But what he brought to his management was a punitivity that made his radio stations less special. If he had talent who listened to him too closely and didn't communicate well with him. And you can say Howard Stern didn't communicate well with him based upon what was conveyed in the movie Private Parts. But he did communicate with Matheny. And if Matheny had listened and truly been a partner in the elevation of that show, it would have been a different scenario. And his depiction in Private Parts would have been a little bit different. Great energy, great show. Poor energy, poor show, regardless of the tactics. Greg Salk, who runs the Odyssey cluster in Chicago, he always told me, and it bothered me a little bit, because in St. Louis we had good tactics, and those tactics were represented in something called time spent listening per occasion. And we lifted that from 8 minutes per occasion. And I'm not going to get into the minutia about what it is. Either you know or you don't. We went from 8 minutes to 13 minutes. And that's a hell of a leap. And he said, ratings, what's going on? So I told him. He goes, yeah, that's meaningless. I said, what do you mean it's meaningless? It's better than a 50% jump. It's an improvement of 50%. He goes, it's not about time spent listening per occasion. It's about the number of occasions. That can be managed, the number of occasions. So concentrate on the number of occasions, and the way you elevate that is by just doing cool stuff. You do cool stuff, they'll keep coming back. You know what? That was 10 years ago. And I remember it like it was yesterday for two reasons. Number one, I was pissed off. Number two, he was right. Now, time spent listening per occasion, I think, has some importance. But number of occasions and doing cool stuff on the radio is absolutely crucial. And that's also true in podcasts. If people listen to the entirety of your podcast, you're doing a great job. But if people come back week after week after week after week, that is you succeeding at an entirely different level. So, while I was pissed off in the moment at Greg Salk because he turned a victory that we had into something that was non-victorious and basically irrelevant, he was right. It's about doing cool stuff and bringing people back. Length of listening, important, kinda. Number of listeners and number of listeners who return, that is where you make your money. Next week, we're going to talk about another aspect of sports media and media in general that's really, really important. And I hope you come back, and I hope when you listen, you understand that I'm here to help. I'm not here to help me. I'm here to help you do better media, because we need to. Media, for those of you who make your money in media, you got to do a better job at it. And there's not enough management necessarily to get that done because of budget cuts. But if you do what I tell you, you got a chance.